Clerk, call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge. Royce C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
All right, thank you. Our invocation today is going to be brought to us by David Barrett, Tarrant County Sheriff's Department. David, if you'll please remain standing after the prayer for the pledges to the flag.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, whose grace is unbounding and whose mercy is everlasting, we ask today that all we do will be just and right and for the benefit of the people whom we serve. To that end, we direct our intentions and seek your divine aid, and in faith for that accomplishment, we give you thanks. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, David.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, David, thanks again. Before I ask for agenda announcements, I just want to say thanks to all of our employees of Tarrant County that worked through the conditions that we had to work through last week. I think everybody did an outstanding job, and I think we owe each other a round of applause for that. Except Commissioner Fickus, I couldn't find him.
J.D., I think particular mention needs to go to our road crews who were out sanding over and over again in the unincorporated areas. And two of our work crews went and cleared runways so Jerry's Jets could get in here for the Super Bowl game. So I think they did extraordinary work above and beyond the call of duty.
Well, of course, if you go that route, the Sheriff's Department and our police and agencies did an outstanding job. But I think all in all, the entire county did.
Absolutely.
Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Commissioner, we do not have any announcements at this time.
Well, I believe that is first. We have the approval of our minutes.
Move approval.
I second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous. We have our consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second of our consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members of the court, we go to item 1 under the administrator's section. We're requesting that the court approve interim financing for grant year 2010. This is a grant renewal with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for tenant-based leasing assistance. This is our 114 program. It provides rental assistance for homeless individuals and families in Tarrant County. This interim funding is for a 4-month period, which starts March 1st.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
District Attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have two items. The first item is the acceptance of subrogation recovery funds in the amount of $1,092.10, requesting authorization for the auditor to cash this check.
Move approval.
Second that.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Your Honor. Under item D2, we're requesting authorization to settle this lawsuit. We have an agreed judgment here for the presiding officer in this case to sign on behalf of the county, and we're requesting authorization for the county, the presiding officer to so sign.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous. Thank you, Ray.
Move approval to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Motion made and second to approve the receive and file the personnel agenda. All in, I guess we have a motion. Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you. We have just one additional item. We're asking the court to approve a waiver of paternal benefits for Constable Precinct 1. The details are outlined in your court communique. The constable is requesting a waiver of 324 vacation hours effective February 9th, which is tomorrow. The impact to the general fund is approximately $6,800, and that excludes fringe benefits.
I move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to approve. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Purchasing, Mr. Beecham, yeah, 12 minutes to make up.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve all of ours at the same time?
Wasting time, Judge.
Good thing they didn't ask Christine Aguilera to say the pledge, too. But first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-022. This is our annual contract for the purchase of vans. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis, including the optional price list, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Number two item is a bid award recommendation for request for qualifications number 2011-031. This is an RFQ for mobile mammography services for the health department. Recommendation would be to award to Texas Health Resources, Harris Methodist Hospital, Fort Worth.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Number three is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-036. This is our annual contract for drug and alcohol laboratory confirmation testing for CSCD. Recommendation will be to award to the primary and secondary vendors as shown on your court communique on a per unit price basis.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve. Any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Our last item is an item in regards to bid number 2011-023. On the 14th of December, the Commissioners Court approved that bid, which is a semi-annual contract for aggregate road surfacing treatment to various vendors. Quite honestly, in the evaluation, we overlooked the one item, which was an item for trucking only, to SAT Trucking. They bid no bid, no bid, no bid, no bid. At the very bottom, they had an item for trucking only. We're asking the court to rescind that court order, which was approved again on the 14th of December, court order number 109497, asking you to reconsider and award to TXI on 17 or 20 items in SAT Trucking, just for the delivery only. What this will do for the county will save us $5.75 per ton for delivery of the material.
Move approval.
Second that.
Motion made and second. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Vote is unanimous. Thank you,
Could
Jack.
we back up to item number G2, the request for qualifications for mobile mammography service? In the way of full disclosure, my wife sits on the board of Texas Health Resources, Harris Methodist Hospital, Fort Worth, but I don't really see a need to abstain since there's no financial interest there. Lawyers, tell me something. Several.
In full disclosure, I sit on the board of Harris Methodist Hospital Foundation, which is a separate entity from Texas Health Resources. No compensation.
What about you?
It actually works the other way. You give them.
I'm a new kid on the block. Nobody wants me yet.
If we can get to where enough of you are disqualified, then you can all participate.
Okay.
But I don't think we're in that category for either one of you, from what I've heard.
So there is
Lack
no,
of compensation is a critical element here.
Well, my wife isn't compensated for her service on the board either.
That's the critical element.
All right.
okay, thank you. All right. Okay, County Judge and Commissioners. Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, I have a interlocal with City of Northwich and Hills to do some work on some streets in the city, and I'd like to move for approval.
Second.
Motion made and second. Is there any discussion? There being none, please vote. Vote is unanimous. Action concerning naming of the Miller Avenue Southeast Sub-Courthouse Complex and Annex, and I believe that's Commissioner Brooks.
It is indeed. Last year, we finished construction at that complex. We built a new building and moved some things around, some departments around. Facilities has been leaning upon me ever since to decide on signage, and that depended, in my mind, upon naming the various buildings out there. So this item contemplates doing two things: naming the Miller Avenue Courthouse Complex the Tarrant County Miller Avenue Government Center, and naming one of the buildings at that complex the 3210 building, which houses CSCD, the Lionel E. Cooper Community Justice Center, in honor of Mr. Cooper, who was the first African-American constable in precinct in Tarrant County, officing there at that complex, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. So that is a motion.
Second.
The motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion?
That leaves one building without a name, and it shall be nameless until it is named.
Okay, we'll call it the nameless building then. Any further discussion? There being none, please vote. Vote is unanimous. Thank you.
And there is money in the construction budget for this signage.
Okay. Okay, under appointments, do we have any appointments today? The chair has some. I would like to name all of the Commissioners' Court members, including the judge, to the Housing Finance Corporation and to the Industrial Development Corporation.
Second.
Is there any discussion? And does that cover what we needed covered?
That's correct.
Okay, there being no discussion, please vote. Vote is unanimous. Any other appointments? No. Any bonds? Claims?
Move approval of the claims register, including the addendum.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? There being none, please vote. Vote is unanimous. Briefing items. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have several items that we'd like to bring to the court this morning. The first is a update on the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System Study. Mr. Fabio from the Health Department is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, Your Honor, and
Good morning.
other commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and to give you a briefing about the 2009-2010 BRFIS, which is the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System. The objectives today that I want to do in this briefing are four: what is the BRFIS, how this survey can help us and other entities in our community, how this data is used, and then provide examples of few examples of some of the topics that we found in the 2009-2010 BRFIS. So if we'll go to the next slide, please. What is the BRFIS? Essentially, it's a telephone survey that's conducted annually by health departments and state health departments across the country. It provides technical and methodological assistance through the CDC. The CDC it's the entity that actually designed the survey instrument. We do it every 4 to 5 years. I think the advantage there is that it allows us to detect significant changes in trends of chronic disease and health conditions. Also, it's cost-effective to do this. Next slide, please. So what information is collected? It's really, the focus is looking on behaviors and conditions that are linked to the leading causes of death. Heart disease is number 1, cancer is 2. We look at stroke, diabetes, and injury, along with a lot of other important health issues. And then they also look at things like healthcare access, mental health status, and emergency preparedness. Next slide, please. What can this BRFIS help us to do? One, it will help us determine the high priority health issues. It can help us detect emerging health issues. It'll help us identify populations that are at highest risk for illness, disability, and death. And it'll also help this organization and a lot of other entities in our community in developing strategic plans that are targeted at prevention activities and programs. Next slide, please. It'll also help us to examine trends and behaviors over time to monitor the effectiveness of some of the public health prevention programs and activities that we do, and we also cross-reference it to the Healthy People 2010 goals for the U.S. It supports community policies that may be revised or policies that are just being created that will promote health and prevent disease.
You are aware that Healthy People 2020 is now
Yes, sir. Yes, sir,
standard?
it is. Right.
But we're still pegging to Healthy People 2010?
We will be able to cross-reference over to 2020. Realize that, as you're saying, that 2020 just came out all of about a month ago, and so that's something, it's over a 10-year span. But yes, we will be able to cross-reference both. First, we're going to go back to the 2010 and then go to the 2020. All right, next slide, please. How is the data used? Well, a lot of entities, including ourselves out in the community, use it to write up grant applications. It gives them very good concurrent data. It also is used, as I've said earlier in my presentation, with program interventions, and it helps with evaluating some of those grant programs that you have, and it also helps with the policy initiatives. Next slide, please. This slide just gives you, in alphabetical order, just a little bit of an iota as to what are some of the topics, and there's a lot more here. Next slide, please. I just wanted, these are some of the folks that are the health professionals over at our health agency that work on this. It's a project that goes on for a couple of years, and we've got our chief epidemiologist, Dr. Anita Kurian, in the audience today, so that if there are any questions or comments, and I need to, I can defer to her. And that wraps up the court briefing. So if there are any comments or questions, I would be glad to field those.
Any comments?
Yes, one comment. I appreciate the fact that we do this survey locally. As you may be aware, I am currently involved in a process with HRSA to rewrite the criteria for how medically underserved areas, medically underserved populations, and health shortage areas are designated. And one of the problems that we ran smack dab into early was the lack of available local data on which to base some of these designations. So I'm glad to see that at least our county is participating in a process that will generate local data on how our community looks from a health status standpoint.
And I'm pleased to serve on that committee that you formed, too, to help you. I know it's as needed, ad hoc, but we have met once or twice with you, so I'm glad for that opportunity.
Do we actively share this information, or is it just made available to obviously it's probably available to anybody that wants to look at it, but
Yes, sir.
we actively go out and, like, working with JPS and other entities.
Let me try to address that, Commissioner Fickus. We will go public with this on March 18th. We'll have a stakeholder meeting. We'll hand out CDs with it. There'll be some hard copies. It's a bound book that's close to an inch in thickness. It'll also be online. And then we get inquiries. People are already starting to inquire because they realize that we've been building up to this again, and they want that information. Again, if it's to help them with policy, if it's to help them to tweak, adjust a prevention program activity, or in their grant application. So, yes, we get all that. We do presentations. Last night I was here in the Mayor's Council to do a briefing, and there were a couple of people. We'll probably work it through Patricia Ward. If there are mayors or council members that have interest, we can go out and do a presentation, and we can get a little bit more into the comparative analysis detail. We'll get into those weeds and go through that on that Friday, March 18th, for about an hour.
Okay, thanks.
Can you provide us with that information when you have it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
For sure.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. GK?
Thank you, Commissioner. And members of the court, I'm just going to touch very briefly on item B, which is emergency management update. We'll have a more full briefing for you next week when Ms. Patterson is available to do that. And as Commissioner Johnson pointed out and the court talked about, we had some fairly significant ice days last week, and our buildings were open, and all in all, the majority of the county offices had individuals there to handle any type of work requirements. One of the things that we're going to be working on in the future is how we communicate better to the public, the buildings that are open or the offices that are open. And we're working with the judges because that probably their business is one that draws more outside public groups in than any other business that we conduct. And we're working with jury services also. We did post some jury service information on our website. And one of the problems that we have is that when we try to get the word out, basically, and work with the TV stations, at one time when we did those announcements, we actually were able to talk to an individual at the stations so that we could craft our own message. Now it's more choosing of a menu. It's all automated, and our message is not as clear as we would like for it to be. So what we're going to be moving toward is putting more information out on our website. The Jury Administration Division actually has a telephone number that individuals can call into. We didn't have a jury call on, for example, we didn't have a jury call on Wednesday. We published it on our websites, and we had the call-in number. And out of all the jurors that had a potential of reporting, had we not called jury services off that day, only 2 individuals showed up. So the vast number of people are getting that message. We just need to refine that effort. Just one weather forecast. We just contacted the National Weather Service right before court. We are going to have some bad weather in the morning again. It looks like it'll be sometime around 5 o'clock that it starts to actually rain and changing into some type of sleet. They believe that it's going to move quickly to snow, which is to our advantage because snow serves as a blanket and people can drive better on that. We're supposed to get some sunshine late tomorrow afternoon and on Thursday, but it'll still be pretty cold. But this is a short duration type weather situation we're going to be going into rather than a prolonged 5-day sub-freezing. And we have been able to handle that type of weather situation very well in the past. But as I said, we'll have a much greater detailed presentation for you next week. And once again, at the staff level, we want to tell you how much we appreciate working with your offices of the road crews. We call them at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're not. I really don't believe they're that interested in talking to me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but I'm interested in talking to them because they're out there doing a lot of good things for our roads. So, and we deal mainly with the Sheriff's Department that early in the morning also, calling their dispatch, and they provide a tremendous amount of information that we use to craft whatever we decide to do. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll move on to the next item.
I have a comment, a
Yes.
request, actually, and that is that we take a fresh look at our policy of never closing. We had a most unusual weather event last week, and driving conditions throughout the area were treacherous. And we had various police agencies all over the county, including the DPS, saying, stay home, do not get out on the roads, because driving conditions are extremely treacherous. It seems to me, I got out on 3 of those 4 days. And that last day, when we had the ice on the road covered with snow, and you couldn't tell where the ice was and where it wasn't, that was an extremely dangerous event. I closed my offices because I did not want to put my employees at risk during that time. We need to take a look at unusual events of this nature and have a policy that is more flexible than we just never close.
What we will do, we've already pulled our policies, and we're looking at those policies, Commissioner, and we might want to do some type of a workshop or at least a substantial briefing in court so that we can talk about this and get everybody's opinion on that. We need to give you all some additional information on the cost of closing also. But
when you close an office, like you said you did, how do you handle your employees' time for that?
They take a personal day.
Okay, well, I think, though, our policy allows for you to take a personal day or a vacation day if you feel unsafe in coming to work. So it's really left to the employees.
Well, that particular day, it was left to me, and I made the decision, as I am entitled to do. But they still took
and that's our policy. If an employee feels that it's unsafe for them to come into work, they can simply take a vacation or a personal leave day. So, but Commissioner, we are pulling those policies. In fact, we have already and working up some financial numbers also for the court to look at. Are there any other comments on that particular section? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and move to item number C, which is our legislative issues. In your court material, Mr. Mendez has provided you with a memorandum as it relates to activities of the legislature last week. Just to point out a couple of things in there. In the memorandum, it shows that the Senate has assigned its committees, and it indicates our senators and their positions on those various committees. Also, just to note that the House is going to, it is anticipated that the House and the Speaker is going to actually create the House committees and assign House committee positions this week. So hopefully we'll have committees in both houses by the end of the week. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions that you might have as it relates to that memo or any other issue dealing with the legislature.
Are there any questions?
If not, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Any announcements or comments today? There being none, pursuant to Section 551, 071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code, we will recess to closed meeting to discuss those items listed and return to open meeting at the conclusion of the closed meeting. back to order. We'll now handle business we discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to item D3, action regarding recovery of overpayment, we're requesting Commissioners Court's approval to accept the employee's offer to deduct $100 per paycheck from his paycheck in order to retrieve a payment erroneously made.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you. Now, with regard to item, is it 4? Yes. Okay. Item D4, requesting authorization for the county to authorize the presiding officer to sign this release so that we can obtain some funds that were paid, that will be paid for our subrogation interest.
Move for approval.
Second?
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Is there a conflict if I vote for or against this?
No.
There being no discussion, please vote. Vote is unanimous.
That's all we have at this time.
Huh?
That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, this court is adjourned.
You're having too much fun.
You said the wrong kind of road today.
We need to change all of them.
I had it going my way.
Hang on to those when you get them signed.